This is another Disney podcast production.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Disney podcast. We are officially legal. Episode 21 coming at you. Cheers, everyone. We're officially legal. I don't know if that really makes any sense from the podcast world, but episode 21. I feel like a year from now, we'll look back and be like, episode 21, we just started.
We were such babies.
I know. We're all separate tonight. I don't have Matthew.
Oh, that makes me feel good.
Oh, hey, Brandon.
Brandon's
I totally
here.
forgot about you. Whew.
Oh, yes.
Man,
I'm not.
I haven't seen Matthew all week.
I know it's crazy when you one thing they don't tell you when you get surgery, they don't want you to be around people all week. I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that. So I'm getting my wisdom teeth taken out tomorrow. So excited.
Pretty sure he just didn't want to see me, but that excuse works
If
well.
the shoe fits.
I love it.
Yep.
Hey, man, we're skipping housekeeping tonight. We've got it's kind of a special episode. We have a really cool guest tonight, but I want to unpack Brandon's trip. So Brandon, you had a staycation at the World of Walt this past week.
We did. We had a staycation. The wife and I decided, we got somehow lucky enough to find the cheapest weekend in the month of May to stay at the Grand Floridian. So we got to stay there for 3 nights. We went over last Thursday. We got a sweet room. We were theme park view. We started out on the top floor of building number 9. The room was kind of old and outdated, so it had 2 beds. That's not really kind of romantic for a staycation. Ideal vacation, but not romantic. So we switched rooms and we got moved over to building number 8, which was really cool, and stayed on the second floor. Had a great view of the park right there on the lagoon. Room was super nice and it was great. And so we just had a fun staycation and we ate and drank, and it was like we didn't live here. It was fun. It was fun to be on vacation again.
That's the best,
Dude, I bet those fireworks fused from your room at night were
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, did you eat anything at the Grand Flow? I've never been there.
We thought about you the whole time we were there, and we said Dave would hate this. So we got there Thursday night. We booked a reservation for the Grand Floridian Cafe, which is we kind of talked about on this show before. It makes you kind of feel fancy without paying fancy prices. But we lucked in. We were able to walk up to Narcoossee's. Now, Narcoossee's, everything I've heard about it is that it's amazing and it's awesome and the views are great. Well, number 3 of that is good. It's it's average, I would say, in my opinion. It's very overpriced for what you get. We had a great experience. It was awesome to do once, but there are many other restaurants at Disney that I would probably go to before that. We went to the California Grill 2 weeks ago with some friends, and that restaurant, hand over fist, same price point that we're looking at, and that one blows this one out of the water. So,
wow, okay.
If you've never experienced, it's cool. If there's fireworks, it would be an awesome place to watch fireworks during dinner. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of average. So we ate there on Thursday night, and then every night we were there, we visited the Enchanted Rose, which used to be Meisner's lounge upstairs. Now they've obviously themed it after Beauty and the Beast. So we went there every night. It was kind of just a cool little wind down spot where we had a drink and some truffle fries. We love that place.
Nice. Okay, so obviously, we're going to skip over news tonight to make some extra special time for our guest, but this randomly lined up perfectly with Walt Disney World pulling the mask mandate outdoors in the parks, and it just lined up perfectly. So you were there. What was it like?
We were there. So we went to Magic Kingdom on Friday, and they still had a mask mandate. So that was normal. And then when we were actually at the Enchanted Rose on Friday night, we got the alert on the My Disney Experience app that said we've updated our health and safety policies. So we went on Saturday. I just happened to be, I don't know how, but I just happened to be able to grab a reservation on Friday night for Saturday for Magic Kingdom. And we went, and it was amazing. Like, you forget how nice it is to walk by somebody outside and smile at them and be able to see them smile back at you.
Yeah.
So it was just nice. I mean, it wasn't a burden at all to put the mask on to go inside a shop or, go on an attraction. It's the same thing you do in the real world, right? If you're outside walking in the grocery store parking lot, you don't put on the mask. When you walk in the front door, you put it on. So it was nothing different than we do in real life, but it was super nice just to see people. We talked to a lot of cast members that were just super excited to be able to see people's faces again. So, yeah, there were a lot of smiley cast members I could see through their mask. They are itching, obviously, to get theirs off.
Sure, yeah.
A lot of the restaurants, they did away with the face shield and were just on the mask. So I think it's, depending on where they work, it's a personal choice if they want to get rid of that face mask. But it's coming. I imagine it has something to do with the unions and the rules that they have to go through before they can ditch those things. But it was nice. It made the park feel a little bit more normal.
Brilliant. I will say, we'll have to, in a few episodes down the road, we'll have to look intently and watch the rumors as they begin to unfold. But the next time that we're all going to be together at the parks is for the 50th. And so now that this has happened outside, I mean, obviously they were still doing some physical distancing, but I mean, the fact that this happened in May and they've got till October, I'm even more cautiously optimistic of what they could whip together to try to provide some kind of wow for the 50th. But who knows? I mean, it's like, I didn't see this coming, especially not that quick. And so who knows? I mean, maybe there'll be fireworks happening even before then. Who knows? Like, I mean, at this point, like, I feel like the timetable's way off, especially when they announced Boo Bash and they were like, masks are going to be required throughout the whole event, on all and so now that, like, that's gone out the window 2 weeks later, a week later, fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed.
And we did talk to one cast member who put it very accurately, and she said Disney likes to be ahead of the game or tie. So basically, they don't want to be last to do anything. So obviously, Universal and SeaWorld, they dropped their mask mandates, so Disney was not going to fall behind in that. So, I would say keep your eye on the other parks. If you start seeing fireworks, I mean, SeaWorld's had fireworks since last fall, I think. But if you start seeing Universal do fireworks again, that may be a good precursor to Disney bringing back nighttime spectacular. So
here we go.
Here we go. Cautiously optimistic that by 4th of July, I hope to see some sort of fireworks in the sky.
Ooh, that's a good marker. Be interesting to see where we are then.
Well, Brandon, that's super cool. I know that I am jealous. I would love to be down there. So, but we have things to do today. We're really excited to have our next guest on. So let's go.
Well, I had the privilege of connecting with Keith on yet again Clubhouse. I feel like that's a gold mine for connecting with Disney-related people for sure. And so I don't want to ruin anything about who you are or what kind of your specialty is when it comes to Disney. So, Keith, first of all, welcome to the show. We're so glad that you decided to jump in with this madness, not knowing these three clowns from anybody. But I am honored to have you on, and I just can't wait to hear you unpack some incredible stories. And so your main focus is Disney history, or maybe your main passion. So talk to us a little bit about how did that come about? Why did you choose that route when it came to Disney?
Well, first I want to say that the honor is mine. Second, I want to say any friend of young Dave is a friend of mine. When I was born, my mom, in her infinite wisdom, decided to take me to Disneyland because she grew up going to Disneyland. We're a Bay Area family, and she was lucky enough to go there with her brother a month after it opened, and they went probably, as often as they could, maybe like every summer, maybe they took a summer off. And when my brother and I were born, he's a few years older than me, she took us. So it's basically just been a part of my life forever since my first memories are probably in Disneyland. And I've always been a writer, so I kept those separate for the longest time. And it wasn't until 2011 that I decided, hey, wait a second, I love Disney and I love writing. So I created a Disney blog, and I did it for about 6 months on my own. But then I guess I started catching the attention of other blogs and websites and entities, and they were like, hey, you should write for us. So it sort of branched off from there. So I don't really update my blog anymore, but I still occasionally write for some websites. The one I write for the most now is probably the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco.
Excellent.
Incredible.
Been there. Quite the fan.
Yes, me as well.
Okay, well, we spend a lot of time on our show talking about parks, going to the parks, unpacking parks news. If you follow our other show, we also spend some time blowing up childhood memories in parks and reimagineering what we would put there in place. And so, since we spend so much time in the parks, let's talk about that, because I know that you've been to a few. And so, first of all, like what Disney parks around the world have you been to, or when it comes to them, how many have you been to?
I have been to every park in the world. And before COVID, I was lucky enough to be a pass holder to Disneyland in Anaheim, Walt Disney World in Florida, Disneyland Paris, and Hong Kong Disneyland.
Wow.
But then COVID came, so now I only have a pass to Florida because that was the only one I could get back. I hope to get the Hong Kong one back as soon as I can get out there again.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So you're just like me and can't get a reservation to get in, even though you have a pass.
Exactly.
Yeah, Brandon lives about 10 minutes from Magic Kingdom, and it's hit or miss when he can get a pass.
It is
or a
indeed.
Reservation.
It is indeed.
I'm just waiting remember that old school game of jump rope where they're doing the ropes and you're just like waiting your turn to jump in? That's me in the international parks. I'm like, I can't wait to get out there. So
I think that's us in California, right, guys? Like, we're like, as soon as they open it up.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love parks, obviously, and each one has its own unique charm. There's something special about each one. And so, yeah, it's good to experience all of them because then you get to sort of compare and contrast. And I have favorites, of course, but they're all well worth visiting, obviously.
Yeah. So what's your favorite international park? Is that a fair question, or is that too hard?
No, it's not too hard. Well, it is kind of hard. So in terms of quality-wise, it's really, really hard to overlook Tokyo Disneyland and Tokyo Disney Sea. Tokyo Disney Resort is the best resort in the world. Although that said, I have a real strong affinity for Hong Kong Disneyland. It's such a small, charming park. It's home to one of the best rides Disney's ever done. So I guess it is harder to sort of pick one. So I can say Hong Kong is probably the most special to me, but Tokyo Disney Sea is maybe the best themed park on the planet.
That literally looks like out of a movie. Like ever I watch videos, I'm like, how is that place even real? How did they dream? And then of course, being right there on real water. It was just, it's an incredible park. Incredible.
It's
okay.
totally.
So speaking of attractions, certainly you've ridden, experienced, viewed, whatever the right adjective is when it comes to all of these parks, almost everything that is out there, like in a Disney park that still exists. So do you have a favorite? Is it hard to like pick just one? Of course it's hard to pick just one, but like if we encompass the umbrella of everything, can you definitively say one attraction? Is that possible?
So it is hard to pick one. but it's not hard to pick two because I can name two right
Fair
now.
enough.
All right.
All right, so Carousel of Progress is probably my number one. If it has an equal in my eyes, that's Mystic Manor in Hong Kong.
Oh,
Incredible.
That is on, because I've been to Disneyland Paris and Florida and California, so those are the parks I've been to. But I would say like Mystic Manor is at the top of my like must ride, excited to ride eventually. So I'm very excited about that one for sure.
Yeah. And we know that Carousel of Progress is definitely Mr. Dave's favorite ride, and it's his favorite attraction for the classic, being an original attraction, a classic attraction. Is that the same pull that it has for you, Keith, or is there more to it than just that?
The Carousel of Progress might be the last attraction remaining that has the most history behind it and the most Walt in it. That's not to say the other ones don't, such as Pirates and Dark Rides and Fantasyland and etc. But there's a quote by Admiral Joe Fowler, who was the head of construction for both stateside parks, who said that there is more of Walt in the Carousel of Progress than anything we've ever done. And I agree. I feel that. And it's basically like when I ride the Carousel of Progress, I'm hanging out with Walt. And I did something really cheesy that I'm going to tell you guys. You guys could all make fun of me after I leave. The first time I went to the Carousel of Progress, first time I went to Disney World, the first thing I did was went to the COP. And I rope dropped the park because I took the red eye. I got there early. I was the only person who made a beeline for the Carousel of Progress. Everyone was going to or whatever.
That's perfect.
But in the front row, they had these these breaks in the seats to accommodate wheelchairs. So there was a couple of 2-seat sections. So I went over to sit in one of those, and one of the seats was broken and it was kind of down already. And I sat down next to it, and I was like, okay, that's Walt watching the show with me. And I got goosebumps I got goosebumps now. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
All right.
It was just really cool. And I fully acknowledge it's not an e-ticket attraction. It's not Shanghai's Tron. I get it. But if you're a Disney nerd, you can't not love it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many unique things about it. I mean, the fact that, it spins, and then, obviously you're feeling that and seeing it inside, but you also see it on the outside. I mean, it feels like it was way ahead of its time, right? And even still today, when you look at it, especially on the exterior, you're like, holy cow, that building is moving, right? It's like, because when it's not moving in between scenes or not running, like it just looks like an ordinary round building. And then the whole thing starts moving. You're like, wait a second. I mean, so that, and I think I might be the only person that still loves the cheesy, like 90s, like futuristic ending. I don't want them to change it. I like it just the way that it is. I think it just adds the cheese factor. And to me, I'm like, I personally think we could have a long discussion about how Tomorrowland is really Yesterland or Yesterworld or whatever you want to call it now. I mean, it really doesn't feel as futuristic, certainly as was the intention when they, opened Walt Disney World. But different conversations for a different day. But I would love to. I would love to experience that attraction, like with an Imagineer, with like somebody who was around when it was like it was on the team designing some aspect of it. To just sit next to them and have them share like, this is, I could just imagine being in like the ear of somebody who was a part of that, like coming to life. And then, so speaking of that and that connection with Walt, you've actually spent a lot of your time like focusing about Walt and learning about Walt. And so a really dumb question would be why? And I'm not going to ask that because I know why. Fascinating figure. Clearly what he's done, not only through like entertainment history, but you're talking cinematic history, animation history. He's just touched so many different things. So because you've spent so much time focusing on him, learning about him, connecting with others that spent, time with him, share a little bit about what that experience has been like as you've studied and met with people and gotten to know like Walt.
So really quickly, I can touch on what you said in regards to, how I got into Walt specifically. Just from going to Disneyland so often every year, we literally went every summer. At a very young age, I was still in grade school. I just suddenly had an urge to learn more about the guy whose name was, this park that I went to every year. So I got a little Walt Disney biography for kids. I wrote a book report about it, and I just was, enamored from the beginning about how fascinating his life was and how he came from like the most humble beginnings and how he just overcame obstacle after obstacle, and how he just was a pioneer. It was, one of the greatest creative geniuses of all time. So when I started to write for the museum and I started to, meet all these Imagineers and meet people who worked with Walt, and I got, I was lucky enough to have a working relationship with his daughter, and I got to hear stories about him directly from her, and it was the greatest thrill of my life to write an article and then have her see me at the museum like a week later and say, I really loved your article. I learned something new, blah, blah, blah. And she would also sort of add footnotes to a lot of the things I wrote about. And she'd always say like, dad this and dad that. And it was just amazing to not hear like, just Walt, but literally hear somebody say dad and referring to Walt Disney.
Wow. So
I just learned more about him through those people. And also, of course, working with other Disney historians who, are like legit, like, they're like professional, and I'm like, single A ball, right? These people know everything backwards and forwards, and they're sort of like my mentors to me. So just talking to them as well and learning all these things. And he was just a fascinating man, and he was a complete flawed human. So no, I would never say he's perfect. A lot of people, want to throw these vicious rumors and stuff like that. And, but those are, irritating, of course, but I will acknowledge that, he was a human being. And so I learned about some of his flaws too. And I just think that because he was so endlessly fascinating, the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. So that's how I just kept snowballing, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, that gave me chills to like hear you tell the story about hearing her say dad and not Walt. Like that just like that would just be super cool to hear. And I think in that story you talked a little bit about Walt and some other people that you've gotten to hang out with. And I know we were talking about music and composing and things like that. And I know you've hung out a lot with Richard Sherman. So is there maybe a story you could tell us about a time you hung out with him and like what it was like to hang with him?
Yeah. I won't say a lot though. I've only hung out with him like 2 or 3 times. But
just 2 or 3 times than
just
almost
2 or 3
everybody else in the whole world.
I don't want people to think like, oh yeah, we're best of buds. Like I hung out with the museum a couple of times, and I went to his house once, so that was pretty much it. But clearly the coolest time was when I went to his house to interview him, because I was in the area, and he agreed to he allowed me an interview, and I told him I'd be happy to meet him anywhere he'd like, because he was accommodating me, and I didn't think he'd want like some guy he only met once or twice at his house. So I said, I'll meet you at any location. And he was like, just come over, here's my address. And I was like, you got it. So I went to his house and I interviewed him for about 45 minutes, and just the nicest guy, just like so friendly, and he like he laughed a lot, and he cracked some jokes, and I didn't have a bad thing to say about him. And at the end of the interview, we're wrapping up. He could tell I was running out of questions because I was thinking, okay, what else can I ask you while I'm still here? But then at some point he had to go to dinner. So he said, well, I do have to head to dinner soon with Elizabeth, so we should probably wrap this up. And I said, sure. I said, I do have one quick favor to ask. And it wasn't a spur of the moment favor, because I brought equipment with me. I said, I have one quick favor to ask you. He's like, yeah, what is it? And I said, first of all, do you have a piano in your house? And he looked at me and he's like, Keith, I have 3 pianos in my house. I was like, okay, stupid question. And I said, the favor is, can I sing There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow with you, and can I film it?
Stop.
and then he looked at me and he's like, "Let's go." So he gets up, he leaves the piano. I set up the tripod, I pull out my camera, and I started recording on my phone so I can have the audio too. And we sang "There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow," and I could not stop smiling. Even now, when you watch the video, I'm singing like this. I'm listening, "There's a great big," because I can't wipe the smile off my face. And it was one of the best moments of my life. And at the end of it, as I'm breaking down all of the like camera stuff, just the tripod, and I had my little DSLR, but I had my phone on top of his piano that was still recording audio. So even though I stopped filming, it was still recording audio. And I'm so glad I did, because he said something to me after that. He said, he's sitting there just smiling, and I think he had a good time too. And he said, "You know what? I haven't done that since with anybody since Walt and Bob, when we all did it together."
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Gosh.
And he's talking about that famous footage you can see in the queue for Carousel of Progress when they sang it back in, I guess it was 64, with, Richard and his brother at the piano, and Walt was singing over him, trying to sing along and everything. And that was the last time he sang that song at a piano with somebody prior to that day. And I was just like blown away. Like,
Man.
so yeah.
I'd have been shook.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
That's incredible.
I mean, spoiler alert, I knew that story, but I didn't know that last part. Like, I had no idea that, like, that was the last time that he had done, like, that chills.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, I'll send you the video, because you'll see, like, it cuts to black, but when it cuts to black, I put the audio in, because again, I only had it on audio. He didn't say it on camera, so I had to put it over, like, my little ending card or whatever. But yeah, to this day, when I watch the video, I'm smiling the whole time watching it. It's a trip.
We will put that in
incredible.
the show notes.
Yes,
Good
for
grief,
sure.
That's amazing.
Jeez.
Well, Keith, I have another question for you. So tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with Diane, and just her legacy and keeping with Walt's legacy.
It was the most amazing experience working with Diane, not only because of, her being able to tell these great stories about her dad, but just the fact that she was such a warm and amazing person in her own right. And she had her own legacy, I felt, with the museum, because she wanted to create the museum for her dad, because she was tired of all the rumors out there and all the false stories. So she wanted to have a museum that told her dad's true story, and they don't pull any punches. There's some of the bad stuff in there too. Like, there's a whole section devoted to the animator strike, and there's recreations of the picket signs, and so they didn't gloss over anything. And she wanted there to be, like, the real story out there. But in doing so, in honoring his legacy, I feel like she created her own legacy, because the museum was just so gorgeously done. She picked the right people for the job, and she oversaw everything. And she was just so, concerned, and, what's the word I'm looking for? She was just very adamant about, like, the truth being out there about her dad. And she just did an amazing job. And she was just so nice. And like I said, she always had the nicest thing to say. And I was really lucky, because when I was writing for the blog, when she was still alive, she was in charge of approving the blog posts. So I would get feedback anytime I wrote something, and it was always so nice. And she'd say things she didn't have to. She could just say, like, "Yeah, this is correct," but she was like, she said stuff like, I look forward to Keith's pieces every single time, and this is so nice." And so, like, she didn't have to add all that stuff, and she did. And she always was really, like, she was very, like, I want to say excitable, but she was just, really just, like, when she saw somebody at the museum, and she, like, clasped her hands together, and she's like, "Oh, there's one funny story I'll tell you. This reminds me of this." So this is another one of those surreal moments for me, I'll tell you guys. Not quite Richard Sherman level, but almost there. I had interviewed Marty Sklar a few times. So I knew Marty for maybe like a year or two by this point, and he was at the museum, and he did a presentation. Then he was signing autographs after the presentation, and I wanted to I had a follow-up question for him from our past interview, And he had given me his card, so all I wanted to do was ask him if the information that I had for him was up to date, because I wanted to follow up some questions. So I had friends in the museum, of course, so I was just talking to everybody, and they're like, "Are you going to are you going to go talk to Marty?" I was like, "Yeah, but I'll let everybody get their autograph first, because I just have a question. I don't want to take anybody's time." So basically, I waited for the line to go down, and then I got to the back of it, and then once they closed it off, I came up to Marty and I said, "Hey, Marty, I have a question, blah blah blah," and I said, I pulled out his business card. I said, "Is this your most recent up-to-date information?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, it is." But he goes, "I do have a new email address, so let me give that to you." So he took his card from me and he's writing down his new email address on the back. And then Diane comes running over and she's like, "Oh, Marty, I'm so glad, Keith's here. I want you to meet Keith. He's one of our best writers." And then Marty looks up at her. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I know Keith." And he goes back down to writing. And I'm sitting there just like, we got Diane here, and Marty here, and like it was just I was just it was one of those like out of body experiences for me. But I had Diane trying to introduce me to Marty Sklar, and Marty Sklar be like, "Yeah, I know this dude."
We're old friends. We go way back.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, Keith, here's something you don't know about this. We always pick something out of the show for the title of that week's episode, and you just said it. This week's title is definitely going to be, "Yeah, I know Keith." That's absolutely going to be the title. I love it. I love it. Okay, now, so Matthew and I were super lucky. We took like this nerds trip with Ryan, who was back with us when we first started the podcast and can't be on it anymore. Nothing bad. And we went on like this super nerd trip. So we all like love technology. Ryan and I worked at Apple at the time, so we wanted to go visit the mothership and do all that. Well, of course, we weren't going to go out there with our passion for Disney and not go to the family museum. So we went. So I have 3 quick questions that I want to ask you about the museum, of 3 things that stuck out to me. So one, I have a picture. I should have had it handy, but I took some picture. There were some very, very, very early pencil drawings of Mickey that I think it said were done by Walt. They were hanging on the wall. Like, is that true? Are there pencil drawings of Mickey early on that Walt drew?
Yes and no. So there's the first known drawing of Mickey Mouse in the museum, the earliest known drawing. And it was a collaboration between Walt and and a third person who I'm completely blanking right now. It'll probably come to me after this is over. And I don't believe they know specifically who did the drawing. If I had to guess, honestly, my honest guess is that particular drawing was probably with Walt's, feedback.
Approval or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, because Walt was the one who came up with the idea of Mickey, and I'm sure he sketched it at some point. I mean, there's some debate as to whether or not the train story is 100% true, whether or not he actually did on the way home from losing Oswald, going back from New York to LA, if he did come up with like Mickey on that train ride. And I mean, he says he did. Some people are saying that's an exaggeration. Diane tells the story that he did, so and the company does, so we go with that. But I have to think that whenever he did come up with Mickey in his mind, I'm sure he sketched it out. You know what I mean? So, but that drawing that is on display, I would have to guess that Ubb probably did most of that work.
That makes sense. Okay. Another one is actually right. It's in the kind of, I don't know if this word is right, but the foyer of the museum, you actually can see this without actually having to pay to get in. And so unless they've moved it around, I don't know if I don't know if there's anything in there that rotates and goes in and out sometimes, but you've got the wall with quite a few awards, Oscars and many other things. But then right behind that on the wall, there is a lamp or lantern or what, it's probably a lamp, and then there's 2 chairs. So I'm fairly certain that's not the lamp that's like in Disneyland that they leave on, right? Is that just like a replica? But I've also heard that some of that stuff is from Walt's apartment. Is it like the chairs that are part of it? So like, I'll just stop asking. You probably know.
So the answer is yes. That's furniture from Walt's apartment, and that lamp was from Walt's apartment, but it wasn't the lamp that was in the window. It was just a different lamp.
Oh, okay. So in Disneyland, is that lamp that's in the Was that literally the same one that's been there since the last time Walt stepped into that or stepped out of it?
As far as I know, I can tell you that the lamp that's at the museum is not the original window lamp. I've only been in Walt's apartment once, and it looked like a lamp of that day. So I can't tell you if it's the exact same one or if they ended up getting, because who knows with electronics, right? Like stuff could, give out on anything.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that information. I'm going to guess yes, because they've kept everything in that apartment pretty pristine.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. They've really not touched it. Kind of like what they've done with this office too. So,
yeah.
Okay. And then the last question, I overheard this and I can't remember where, and I'm hoping I'm going to lead you in the right direction to guess what I'm talking about. So there's a full scale model of Disneyland, like not full. That doesn't make any sense. Full scale model would be full.
A full scale model would be.
Yeah, you can go. You can go. It's in San Francisco. Tell your friends. It's a brand new park. But like a model of all of Disneyland that's in like a glass case, and there was something like they included something in there that wasn't their opening day. Am I right on that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
What was it? Was it Space Mountain?
So okay, you're in luck, young Dave, because I know a lot about that model.
Oh, good.
I interviewed the people who created it. So, yeah. That model is called the Disneyland of Walt's Imagination. That model was never meant to replicate opening day Disneyland.
Okay.
That model also, as it exists, doesn't represent any one iteration of Disneyland, because there are two attractions in there that are next to each other that never coexisted in Disneyland. You got Space Mountain right here. You have the Carousel of Progress right there. Carousel of Progress left Disneyland 73. Space Mountain opened in 77. So right there, this park never existed. So that basically the model is everything that Walt had a hand in his lifetime.
Okay.
The reason that Space Mountain is in there, because Space Mountain opened in 77, Walt died in 65 or 66. I'm sorry. And people ask us, like, why Space? If that's the case, why is Space Mountain here? Well, Walt thought of the idea for Space Mountain, and they first sketched it out. I believe it was John Hench at Walt's behest back in like 64. So Space Mountain was planned originally for the New Tomorrowland in 1967. It didn't make it for various reasons, but yeah, Space Mountain was Walt's idea.
Yeah. So I remember. I remember that, but I remember hearing something about Space Mountain in that particular model, and now that you unpack it all, that's
one of the most common questions. We get stuff like, why is Space Mountain here? Because it was 77. We get stupid stuff like, where's Splash Mountain? But yeah, no, that's the reason. Is that's the model makers wanted to just have everything that Walt had something to do with. So there's a lot of little Easter eggs in that model, and whenever I go to the museum with people, I rarely give people tours of the galleries, because there's just so much to read, so much to listen to.
Yeah.
I want to take it at their own pace. But once we get to Gallery 9, we walk down that ramp, I'm like, all right. And I give them the model talk. And I tell them all the Easter eggs. I tell them why this was done. I tell them what some of the stuff was made out of. I tell them how long it took to create, and everything they want to know about that model. So,
dude, next time I'm calling you straight up. It's happening.
Anytime. I'd love to give you guys the model tour.
Oh, and now that I know Walt had a hand in Space Mountain, I feel super bad that I demolished it last time in our pick one. That makes me feel kind of bad now.
Hey, it's not a living museum, right? Right? Some things got to go. Love it. So, okay. So here's one question. Now you kind of glazed over it really quick. You talked about having kind of two favorites, and so you unpacked Carousel of Progress, which totally makes sense. I don't love it for the same reasons, but now I love it more because knowing more about the history of it. But you also talked about Mystic Manor. So why? What is it about that ride for you that escalates it above everything else?
Okay, there are many facets of an attraction. Once you're approaching the attraction, you see the facade. Once you enter the building, you enter the queue. Once you wind through the queue, you get to sometimes the pre-show. After you experience the pre-show, you board a ride vehicle. Once you're on the ride vehicle, you experience the attraction. When you're experiencing the attraction, there is technology, there is a score, and there is a story. And then once the story wraps up, you have a climax or an ending. Everything I just said was done to the tens, basically. They couldn't have done anything better, in my opinion, in that attraction. I mean, not to say that it's perfect, but everything fires on all cylinders. The facade is gorgeous. The queue is awesome. It sets up the story. It brings in the elements of the sea, the society of explorers and adventurers. The pre-show is adorable. I love Albert. I love they play some of that amazing theme in there. Danny Elfman killed it. I love the trackless ride vehicles. I love the fact that not only are they trackless ride vehicles, but they're part of the story. They are designs. They're what are they called? Mechanical carriages, I think, and they're of Lord Henry Mystic's design. The whole reason you're there is that you're there as a guest of Lord Henry Mystic to look at his antiquities that he's collected over the years, and he's created this magneto carriage, or whatever it's called, to show you around. So the ride vehicles are part of the story. The effects are great, the score is great, and the ending, the climax of the attraction, which is to say the last two rooms, best ending of any Disney ride, I believe. And so, yeah, fires on every cylinder.
Well, that was a good answer. Very succinct. Like I would never be able to explain why I love like Haunted Mansion so much, other than like it's a classic. I love it. Now I feel like
it's super
idiot.
fun.
I read a lot about it. The music's great, and it's the first ride when I get to the park. That's all, folks. See you next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's
Go for it.
see if you can pull a rabbit out of a hat here. So when it comes to Walt, we're obviously one of the most famous figures in American and maybe even international history. You can say that name and not many people would not recognize it immediately. So there's, lots of books written about him, lots of, stories from Imagineers that have been told, lots of TV programs, movies, you name it. So is there something that you can share with us and our audience that would be considered like little known about Walt? Is that even possible? Is that a thing? Because he's such a beloved and, studied, person of history. So
yeah.
You got anything for us?
So I could tell you two things. One is something that every single Disney historian knows, but maybe the casual Disney fan might not know. And this is sort of lends itself to the whole Walt was a human being thing. Walt was very fond of cursing. So
funny.
So Rolly Crump tells this great story about how Walt's favorite word was the S word, so to speak. And one day, I don't remember the entire story, but one day, Rolly, who was a painter, he loved doing painting. He wrote the S word on a rock, and it was called the S Rock, and he gave it to Walt as a gag. Walt loved it, apparently. There's also supposed to be this one I know it exists just from people I've spoken to, but I've never gotten to hear it. So Walt did the narration for the Ford Magic Skyway in the 1964-65 World's Fair. And I believe it was written by Marty. And Marty used, I guess, some bigger words, and Walt was sort of tripping over them. So there's this one take. I don't know if you want to call it the red band take, but he's reading the lines like, welcome to the Ford Magic Skyway, and he doesn't get it, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. He's like, bleep, 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 bleep. Again, the party doing these words. So there's some kind of take out there that exists, and who knows if I'll ever get to hear it, of Walt just like cursing, but not like in a belligerent sort of he's just like really frustrated, and he's just venting out frustration. So
nobody speaks like this, Marty.
And I've gotten confirmation that it exists. So yeah, I think that just makes Walt even more charming, personally. And two is, I'll tell you something that one of the most prestigious Disney historians in the world, I won't name any names, but he told me this story once, and I actually asked Walt's daughter about it, and she gave me like a little bit of not a full confirmation, but I'll tell you a story. So everybody knows that Walt loved to walk the park. So it didn't matter if it was midnight, 4 a.m., he'd stay in the apartment overnight, and he'd get out, and he felt like walking the park, he'd walk the park. So people were just used to seeing him, walking the park. There's this one story I was told that one day there was a worker on Main Street doing something with the tracks or the curb or whatever, and he looks up and he sees, and I guess he wasn't used to seeing Walt around the park just yet, and Walt was sort of like, just sauntering down in like, in his robe, and the guy looked up, he's like, what's happening? And he sees this guy in a robe approaching him, and as he gets closer, he realizes, oh, it's Walt. And then Walt looks down to him, and he asks him what he's doing, and he tells him. And then Walt's like, okay. And then he's right outside of the Sunkissed shop, and he goes, hey, do you want some fresh squeezed orange juice? And he goes to his robe and he pulls out like the set of keys, and he jingles them. He goes, I got the keys to the place. And I thought that was just the coolest story, right? Like Walt just being Walt, like being playful but also generous. And I asked Diane if she could confirm if that ever happened, and she's not going to know every single teeny tiny story about what her dad did, but I just said, Diane, have you ever heard that? Like, did your dad ever do that? And she says, no, I never heard that specific story, but that totally sounds like Dad. I was like, yeah, that's good enough for me. So that was really cool. He was always doing that kind of stuff, just blows my mind how he was just so accessible, and you hear, you don't have to, obviously don't take it from me. Like you hear these people who worked with Walt, and whenever you watch these documentaries, like you did the Imagineering story or like, the Richard and Robert Sherman documentary, whenever you hear these Imagineers talking about when they worked with Walt and then Walt passes and then afterwards, they all have the same exact thing to say. They say it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was just that. I mean, they were going to build a freaking city. And after Walt passed away, after one human being out of this company of who knows how many hundreds or thousands it was, they also said, we can't do it without this one guy.
Wow.
So that's just how, he was. And so I love that kind of stuff. I love to hear that, like those personal humanizing stories about Walt.
Yeah. Well, one quick question. So when you're talking a lot about all this information, and it makes me think. You said you were talking, or you were writing a bunch of articles for the Walt Disney Family Museum. It makes me wonder, what are you doing now? What are you working on now? Are you writing a book? Like, is it like there's a lot of information to be told? So, I mean, what are you working on now?
So yeah, I haven't written for the museum in about a year. I got hit with a pretty big case of I don't know what the word for it. It was not writer's block per se, but it was just like once COVID happened and the shutdown happened and everything, I thought that I was like, oh, I'll be home all the time, I can get a lot of writing done. But once I started working from home and I was in like, the corner of my condo with my, all day at the desk, and I'd get up and, sometimes I go to the gym or whatever. I just really didn't, it was a different feeling than going to work and sort of coming home to relax, to write. And all of a sudden and I tried my best to keep my workstation in my living room and my personal station in my bedroom, but still, I just sort of got hit with a big, I just didn't write for a while. Yeah. So, months. So yeah, see, the last article I wrote for the museum was probably last spring of 2020, right when COVID actually. But that being said, towards the end of the year, I got off my butt and I was like, okay, it's time to start writing again. So I am going to write another piece for the museum pretty soon. But to answer your question, I also am working on a book. And it is, I don't want to be a surprise, but it is a coffee table book that's basically parts, cool photos, but part Disney history. And there is going to be some Imagineer contribution to it. So yeah, I hope to be done with the first draft by the end of this year. So once I'm done and it's like, the first draft is done, then I'll certainly let you know, and I'll give you the deets. I'm excited.
I am very excited.
Yes.
About that. That's awesome.
Yes.
I have like a
Super
million
excited.
coffee table books here, so I'll buy it.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, it's. I did a little bit of research about some of the Disney coffee table books, and the ones put out directly by Disney are cool, but some of them are longer on the photos and shorter on the info. And then I've seen some fan-driven ones, and I'm not going to name any names, but I saw one where most of the information was taken from Wikipedia, and I was just appalled as a Disney historian. I'm like, oh my God. So this is basically half Disney history and half picture. So it's going to be a good combination of both. And I'm a terrible photographer, so I'm not supplying the photographs, so don't worry about that. I'm doing all the work. So there's going to be professional photography, but also, some decent writing in it as well.
Okay. I can't wait. Matthew said he would write the foreword for you if you needed somebody.
You said the foreword or 4 words. I can't guarantee anything.
I can only tell you what Matthew was saying. Read this book now.
No, I'll be a little bit more polite. Read this book, please.
There you go. There you go. Could you have a better foreword? I think not. Okay. I say let's talk a little bit about some parks. Okay, so I guess you would consider obviously Disneyland your home park. That's always going to be, I think, the most special one, just because, it really was Walt's baby. And it came to when it comes to that, it just, I can't imagine dreaming that up and then seeing it come to life. And then, I would love to see his face today, knowing that, what this, I know this can be an ugly word, but what this empire, this juggernaut has become, and what it means to people. But transitioning from parks, obviously another big part of Walt was storytelling, in cinema. So what are some of your favorite classic films, classic animated stories? Do you have any that are it's something like, oh gosh, yes, I have to watch this every year? What are some of your favorite films from the early days of Walt stuff?
So most of my favorites are, of course, the Walt era films. I do love some of the new films, obviously, but when you ask me what my favorite Disney film, it's Pinocchio. I think Pinocchio is the greatest animated film of all time. I'm still sticking by that. It's incomprehensibly gorgeously animated. I can go on about just, that movie. So yeah, Pinocchio's number one. And I love, Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, Three Caballeros, Alice in Wonderland. So a lot of the old ones. I like some of the new ones too. I love Tangled, and I love obviously the rebirth, with Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Lion King. But I love the classics. Pinocchio's number one, and I didn't watch a whole lot of the live action films. I'll be honest with you. I've seen a few of them, like the major ones, like 20,000 Leagues and stuff. Obviously, Mary Poppins is high up there, but a lot of the random sort of one-off animated live action films, I just flat out haven't seen. I've watched a couple of them, and I couldn't get into them, and I made the decision then. I was like, you know what, if you're not feeling it, it's like, I'm not going to be one of those people that pretends to like everything just because it's Disney or just because Walt had a hand in it. If I'm not digging it, I'll just pass. And there's a few of the old live action films that it's just a different era. The humor is different, and what passes entertainment then. But it's not just Disney. It's I watched Citizen Kane, and I fell asleep. I was up filmmaking for a while. And I was like, oh my God. So
and people rave about that film.
Right. That's supposed to be the number one film of all time. So it's no. So some of the old live action films I just can't get into. But yeah, the old animated films are all such classics. They're so gorgeous. So
yeah.
Sure.
I would fight over people who don't like Mary Poppins. I personally think that's the best work that they've ever done, for countless reasons. I mean, I could go on and I mean, like, could there have been a better cast? Nope. How, it was the first time that, like, majorly that they interacted with animation and live action on screen. Like, there's not a song from that film that you hear 3 bars or 3 notes or sing 3 words that people won't automatically know that's from Mary Poppins. I mean, I just think I grew up, we watched that, I wore that VHS tape out. and I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been like dreaming that up, creating it, being on set, like and then how, that was the first time that, actors had to, okay, all right, now the penguins are going to be right here. You're interacting with, I mean, I can't even imagine what it was like doing that for the first time. Like, I mean, I know, of course, with, the Alice shorts early on, but this was like major cinema, something that everybody in the world was going to go, and I mean, it debuted, and, you had the big, Grauman's Chinese Theater where it, premiered. And wait, did it premiere there? Or did it premiere at across the street?
No, it premiered at Grauman's.
Okay. So yeah, that's not that anyone asked or cares, but that was my little rant about Mary Poppins.
Don't forget about Song of the South. That was like 20 years before they did live action animation too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Fair.
But I mean, it obviously wasn't on the same scale. So I'll certainly speak to that, because yeah, they did it. He did it first with the Alice comedies back in the 20s, and then Song of the South in the 40s. But yeah, I think with Mary Poppins, it was like, I mean, they were like in these entire sets, and it just, yeah, I feel you're right. Like, Mary Poppins is almost like the Mystic Manor of films, right? Like, it every cylinder fires, and I never get tired of watching that film. And one of the reasons why we were talking about Clubhouse earlier, young Dave, we had a topic about controversial newer films, like the film Tomorrowland, how it has like, a small following, but a lot of Disney fans didn't like it. And then Mary Poppins Returns has a small following. And we had some passionate defenders come on and talk about it. And they're like, what do you think? I was like, I hated it. Like, I was just like, I think it does nothing to, Walt was a big fan of saying the word plus, like plussing something. I don't think it pluses Mary Poppins' legacy at all. I think it was just a strict money grab. And it's impossible. Some things are just impossible to recapture, and Mary Poppins is that. Like, not good. I mean, the closest they came in that film, ironically enough, was the scene with Dick Van Dyke, for obvious reasons, right? So no, I think Mary Poppins is pretty close to a perfect film. I agree with you.
Yeah. And you mentioned Song of the South, and these guys know, but my favorite attraction, and obviously I've only been to Disney World, but my favorite attraction is Splash Mountain. So back when I lived in Maryland, people would say, hey, if you could fly to Disney World, ride one ride and then fly home, what would it be? My answer is always Splash Mountain. It will always be Splash Mountain. So I was just kind of wondering what your take was on the retheming of this attraction.
Yeah, here we go. Nitty gritty. I like it.
Do you think it should stay where it is, or how do you feel about the Princess and the Frog?
Love Princess and the Frog. Love the music. I love the fact that Tiana's getting some representation. I might not have thought to retheme Splash initially if I were there, but now that they've done it, it does make sense, because it's been pretty controversial for the longest time. But obviously in today's day and age, like, everybody's significantly more sensitive, and every single person has a bullhorn now thanks to social media. So Disney hears it a lot more than they used to. And obviously, when you have the CEO of the company saying this film is never going to be released ever, there's obviously some problems with it, right? So I don't mind. I remember when they first made the announcement, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally okay with this. I understand that people get upset when they lose something they love. It happens all the time. It happens people loved Alien Encounter, and they put in Stitch, was maybe one of the worst rides that Disney's ever done. I'm trying to think of something else recently. Things close all the time, so that's not a huge deal for me. I think it's going to be harder if you're going to go with the theme. It's going to be harder to justify in Florida, because in Anaheim you can just as easily annex that mountain into New Orleans Square because
Yes.
Splash Mountain is right next to
Yeah.
Haunted Mansion. And that makes perfect sense. Hey, at New Orleans Square, or even just say goodbye to Critter Country, make the whole thing New Orleans Square, and just, I remember saying this also in another clubhouse or maybe as another podcast, but people are like, they didn't want to lose Pooh. I'm like, why wouldn't you who cares about winning the Pooh? Like, that's probably the worst dark ride in the park. I know people like Pooh. Sorry, everybody, but it just makes sense because, I mean, you could do so much if you were to make Critter Country a part of New Orleans Square and you have the Princess of the Frog ride. You could either turn the Bear Country area into Tiana's place and have it a nice, big themed restaurant, or you could make the back row where like Pooh's Corner is and all that stuff. You can make that a restaurant. You just have all these. It opens up all these new possibilities. So I'm fine with it in Anaheim. In Florida, though, I think their Splash Mountain is in Frontierland, right? So that's going to be having a southern sort of, based value attraction in the Western Frontier. So,
Yes, we have that debate all the time on our show. There's nothing frontiery about down home South Louisiana, so it's going to be hard to fit it in that area.
I'll tell you one thing. As a Californian, we know that Disney has more or less thrown in the towel on committing to theming, because all you have to do right now is go to Disney's California Adventure.
Oh.
You're going to see The Little Mermaid. Was that set in California? Monsters Inc. Is Monstropolis set in California? Like all these things, they changed Soaring out over California to Soaring over the world. All these different attractions, we lost Tower of Terror, and now we have the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, which I think is in space. I don't know if it's secretly somewhere down in maybe it's in the East Bay, maybe it's in Oakland, who knows? Right. So all these things, Disney at some point, they're just like, all right, they just throw it in the towel basically. So it makes sense, it's funny too, because I should think about that. I should write an article about like when they first started to throw in the towel. It might have been some of the stuff with DCA, because DCA was the most
bad.
Theming a park after California Adventure was the most short-sighted decision maybe they've ever made, right? Because you had this whole resort plan with Westcott. It was a $3 billion project, and all of a sudden, okay, we can't do it. Like, they were having problems with locals. Euro Disneyland was losing them all this money. They just realized it was getting scaled down. So what happens? ISR says, okay, I'm going to send my executives to a retreat for the weekend in Colorado. We'll think of something. They go there. Hey, people come to Disneyland, but then they go to San Francisco. Then they go to San Diego. Why don't we make all that stuff in one park? Brilliant. Let's do it.
Well,
no foresight. No, it was basically just a Band-Aid over saving all of the work that they had been putting, like the city of Anaheim through over the past few years, trying to get like this, this additional park added. And so, and they paid the price, back in 2012, I think they spent like 1.5 billion just fixing DCA. I mean, not enhancing it it enhanced it, of course, but it really was a fixing, because that park was just dying. And now it's a viable park. But yeah, I mean, we talked about this, young Dave. Didn't I steal your name, because I said I wanted them just to recall it Disney's, instead of Disney California Adventure, just Disney's Adventure Park, or Disney.
Right. Yeah, when I was saying that about Hollywood, it just needed to change Hollywood to Hollywood Adventure. Yeah. So, I think Disney's Adventure would make more sense. Like, you just got to drop California. Like, there's nothing. Well, I mean, I guess what's the water ride there? Like, every time we go, it's closed because we always go in February.
Oh, the
Grizzly River Run.
Grizzly River Run.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the only California-y thing that's there still.
Yeah.
Because they have the Hollywood backlot is still technically on land, and there's some facades there that harken back to the days of Hollywood. But yeah, attraction-wise, there's no more California Screaming. There's no more Soaring over California. The Tower of Terror was supposed to be the Hollywood Tower of Terror. So, Superstar Limo is now Monsters Inc. Superstar Limo. I don't want
to. I was gonna bring it up. I was like, wait, come on. That's got to have been the worst ride they ever made. It's got to be.
It is. If you have like a scale, or like a volume meter where 0 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. Here's Mystic Manor and here's Superstar Limo. It's like they're opposite ends. They're polar opposites. They are the North Pole and the South Pole of Disney attractions.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so let's go back to Walt Disney World because I do want to talk about that. So, shameless plug here, but on our, I think, was it our most Reimagineer episode where we did Tom Sawyer's Island? It was, right?
Yeah,
That was last
the
week?
most recent. Yeah.
Okay, so we did. That's what we decided to Reimagineer like Tom Sawyer's Island. So one of the things that Matthew said is he would take he would take Big Thunder Mountain and put it on that island, like similar to like kind of what Paris has done. And then, so what did you say that you would put in the place of Big Thunder Mountain, Matthew?
New Orleans Square.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we were texting back and forth. It was either today or yesterday. And I said, he missed an opportunity. I said, what he should have done is taken the boat. And so, because obviously the Liberty Bell's not going to go around anymore, but they should leave it. They should pull it over right in front of the rethemed Splash Mountain and make that like a dining experience that's always docked there called Tiana's Place. And that would tie it together even more.
Hey, Dave,
Like,
Dave, the reason I didn't build a bridge was so the boat could still move.
Well, how are you going to get what are they going to do? Go underwater?
The Big Thunder Mountain?
Yeah.
That's what it does in Paris.
Is that what it does? Okay, all right.
Yep.
Well, okay.
It does. It goes under the water.
You were there.
I know. I didn't remember going under the water.
Well, I mean, you don't see it. It's not like a clear tube, but
Hey,
Tunnel.
Brandon, they themed it really well. Oh, okay. Keith, man, well, thanks so much for this. This has been absolutely amazing. Where can people find you and see what you're doing now? I mean, I know you're obviously writing a book, but like, where can people find you online? What are you working on outside of the book when it comes to Disney?
So I did before COVID. I would do in-person Disney fan events. So I would, get an Imagineer. They would be the special guest. I would write some sort of Disney presentation. I would be the opening act, and then the special guest Imagineer would do their presentation. They'd be the headliner. I did a few in San Francisco. I did one in Orlando. And I had been wanting to do one again because the last time I did one was late 2017. And I was like, by the time 2020 rolled around, I was like, yeah, it's time to do another one. And then, something happened, some small little thing happened. So I want to do one again. And so, but obviously this year's a wash, but maybe next year. So I might be working on that. It's just right now an idea in my head. So aside from the book, I'm certainly going to be looking into doing another Disney fan event, and it'll probably be in Orlando again.
Yes, I was going to say you have three
There
votes
you
for
go.
Orlando right here.
Yeah, because I love doing them in the Bay Area, but Orlando gives it a little bit of a extra element, and it gives it a little more incentive for people who they want to travel to it. So I'm thinking of maybe sometime in 2022. But yeah, other than that, I'll just be working on the book, and I will be doing another article for the museum this year, at least another one, maybe two. It's just, again, I'm trying to focus on finishing the book, so that's taking up most of my time. So if people want to see my random stuff, I'm at Disney Project on Twitter and Instagram. I'm not super active, but one thing I do on the regular is every Sunday evening I do a show on Instagram called the Disney History Minute, where I take requested topics and I just do Disney history for that minute or two. So somebody could request the history of Splash Mountain, somebody can request the history of Mystic Manor, whatever it may be. I've done that, since 2018 now. I think I'm up to 152 episodes. So every Sunday night on my Instagram stories, if you want to see a quick little tidbit about Disney history, just tune in.
That's awesome.
I did not know that.
Nice. I will definitely check that out.
How can we turn that into 20-minute shows?
They're surprisingly time consuming because
Yes, I was going to say, you need more than 24 hours in a day. Yeah.
These little 1 to 2 minute shows take me 2 to 3 hours because I have to write it. I research it. I write it. I record it, and I'm terrible on camera, so I'm holding the phone and I'm tripping over my words, so I have to keep re-recording it. And so, yeah, I'm probably gonna wrap that up sometime this year as well because, again, I want to focus on the book. But for now, I'm still doing them, and they're really fun because I get to get a lot of feedback and a lot of interaction from people who like Disney history. So it's good because, I don't make a dime off any of this, and that's not the intention. It's basically just I really love, Walt's story, and Diane was a very special person to me, and she told me something. I've said it before. I'm not going to repeat it, unfortunately, but she said some really nice words to me once, and I just sort of said at that moment, you know what, like, she basically validated my Disney nerd existence, and I was like, as long as I'm alive and have some energy, I'm going to try my best to promote Walt's life and legacy, because he's look how much he's done for us, right? So it's the least we can do.
Yeah.
That's great.
I love it.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. At Disney Project every Sunday night at what time, or is it is it live?
It's not live. It's
okay.
I might do a couple of live ones though, just to mix it up. But yeah, it's just every Sunday evening, and honestly, whenever I get home, it could be like 6 p.m., it could be 10 p.m. So yeah, just check my stories. They'll be there, and if you don't want to wait, just Monday morning they'll be there. So yeah,
love it, man. It was an
Awesome.
honor having you on. Thanks so much for your time. I know that time is what we've got right now, man. Where life's so crazy. I'm glad things are starting to get back to normal. I hope you're feeling that over there in California as things are a little bit slower to get back going. But man, we really appreciate the time. It means a lot to me. Also, like, if anybody's listening loves Clubhouse, Keith is on there, and he's in almost every Disney room that I pop into, and then there's even a couple that you're leading. Talk a little bit about what you're doing on Clubhouse too.
So Clubhouse was a trip to me because when it came out, at least when I was able to get access to it a few months ago, it's been out obviously I think for a year now, but I got invited finally, and I got in, and when I first joined, there weren't a whole, there were some Disney rooms, but there weren't a whole lot. And, doing what we're doing now is, you guys are the same as me. Like, it's just so much fun to talk about Disney. Because I'm old enough to remember when there was no such thing as the internet. And I was the weird kid at school who didn't live anywhere near Disney Park, but still loved it. So once the internet happened and we had like these thing called message boards, I was like, wait a second. There are people who don't live in Anaheim or Orlando who like Disney too. Like, I'm not alone. And holy cow, there's other people in the Bay Area who like Disney too. So it was, it's such a bizarre feeling. And you get that in real time in Clubhouse because honestly, you just start up a Disney room and a bunch of people come on. And I think a lot of people have been doing a good job of being pretty respectful. And like, everybody has like, contrasting opinions, but especially when you get into the debates like we had with the Mary Poppins thing, like I was,
right.
And you preface it with like, hey, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't like this movie. I'm saying this is why I don't like it. So everybody's, been pretty respectful about it. So it's just another excuse. And I work from home, and I don't. If I'm not having a meeting with a fellow employee, my job's not customer facing. So if I'm not meeting with an employee, I'm just sitting there. I might have like CNN or something. So basically, I'll troll Clubhouse and I'll look for a Disney room and I'll just have it on as white noise when I'm working. And then if it's a really cool topic, obviously I'll jump in. I'll be like, yeah, I want to talk about this. So, yeah, it's great. It's a great outlet for, I will say though that I'm really curious to see what happens to it going forward, because I feel like once the parks open again, it almost seems like it was a good way for people to get their fix when the parks are closed.
Right.
After everything starts to reopen and everything, I'll be curious. You'll probably see still occasional Disney stuff, but it certainly won't be as often as it's been. It's even kind of winding up a little bit now, right? People are just sort of running out of topics. Even me and Daniel, we're not doing one this week because Daniel's he's away. But last week we did like a generic sort of like just Disney versus like Disney World versus Disneyland and Disneyland Paris versus Disney. We were running out of topics. So I think that's, Disney Clubhouse is going to go on, but it's going to have to evolve, right? So I'm curious to see what the next phase is. I have something planned that I'm not going to tell you, but I'll tell you off the show because I want it to be a surprise. But I am going to do one cool thing on Clubhouse probably in about a month or so. That hasn't yet. So I'll keep you in the loop. But it's not going to be a regular thing because it's going to be a lot of work. And again, it's not going to be for any money. It's just going to be a really cool thing to do for fellow Disneyers, basically.
I love it. Yeah, because you do a weekly. You also do a weekly show called, is it Disney Past and Present? Not show, but you have a room. Is that what we call it?
Every week, yeah. The club is called Disney Past and Present, and I wanted to do that because, for the most part, on Clubhouse, the people who did Disney stuff, it was usually like what's the best food, what's the best snack, how do you navigate during a pandemic? And there wasn't a lot of people who were talking about Disney history. And I was like, well, boom, that's my niche. I'm jumping in. So that's why I called the club that, because I wanted to be able to talk about history. And sure enough, we've had a few Disney history rooms so far. So, and the thing that I'm going to do that I told you about, the cool thing, is going to be very strongly tied to Disney history. So it's not, they're not as popular as the other rooms, because people just like to talk about their favorite cookie and everything. They don't want to hear necessarily about Waltz and everything. But
that's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a me culture. But I mean, I feel like you're right. Like, I mean, like when I think about Clubhouse, I think it officially was out of the gate in April of 2020, right? I think, I could be completely wrong, but I feel like when you think about Clubhouse and you think about what happened in the world, like it's almost like that couldn't have launched at a better time. And now that, not even just, you take Disney out of the equation, but you when the world starts to get back to normal, I just wonder if Clubhouse as a whole will continue to just, like, I mean, I hate to use the word, but decline, because I mean, people's they're going to be out and about. Life's getting back to people are more active and people aren't at home as much. And so, or if, people that have been working remotely, if their company is calling them back in, things will start to change. People's availability, it's not like you can always have that on as background noise at the office.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you had a headphone in or something, but I almost feel like, I mean, that was just destined to land when it did, and it's going to serve its purpose, and what a great filler. I mean, I hate that for them as a company if it just falls apart, but it was a great, I mean, it did land at the perfect time. I mean, I wish I would have found it much earlier, but yeah. So anyway, yeah, check Keith out on Clubhouse. He's at Disney Project. Keith, again, meant the world, man. I'm so glad we were able to connect on Clubhouse, and thanks for agreeing to come on our show and spend some time just sharing about some of your experience and your passion for Disney.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and it was nice to meet you guys.
Yes, you too. Thanks
Love
for
it.
hanging out with these three yahoos.
That's a better name for the show. Why isn't it called These Three Yahoos?
Right. Done. Well, that guy was a wealth of information. I didn't have very much to say because I just loved listening to him. It was
I agree.
So much fun.
I agree, man. And anytime somebody tells Disney stories, I just sit like,
And a kid in a candy store.
exactly.
Good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, Brandon, where can the people find us on the interwebs?
Well, I am super glad you asked, Matthew. The people can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Another Disney Podcast. They can find us on Twitter at Another Diz Podcast. You can look us up on our website, anotherDisneyPodcast.com. You'll find a link to all of our shows, all of our experiences. Remember, we have Reimagineer It. We have Experience Disney. You can find all of those right there on our website. And then you can also find us on youtube.com/Another Disney Podcast. If you check us out on YouTube and you like what you see, make sure you hit the like button and tell your friends about us.
Yes.
For sure.
Subscribe. Is that what all the YouTubers say? Hit the like button and subscribe.
That's right.
Don't know what that accent came from.
Yeah.
Fellas, this was great. I'm so glad we were able to connect with Keith. Loved every second of it. I mean, I could have listened to him talk for hours. Great, humble guy. Loves Disney. Had some pretty incredible conversations with some pretty big names. So it was cool to hear some of those stories. All right, fellas. Until next time.
Till next week.
See you later.
Peace.
Bicycle.